Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. Today is International Anti-Corruption Day, and for here in Nigeria, of course, different conferences, roundtables will be held to commemorate the day. Corruption is a pressing issue, and it affects public finances, business investment, as well as standard of living. According to a report by professional services firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, corruption in Nigeria could cost up to 37% of gross domestic products by 2030 if it's not dealt with immediately. This cost is equated to around $1,000 per person in 2014 and nearly $2,000 per person by 2030. Given that the exchange rate is at 305 naira 50 kobo at the interbank foreign exchange market, and we have that at 485 naira, there 458 naira at the street markets, and not to mention the other segments of the market where Nigerians access dollar. That's quite a lot of money. So joining me to look at some of the issues with regards investors and investments is Eromosele Aziba. He's an investment analyst with AfroInvest. So good morning to you, Eromosele.
Good morning, Harriet.
Thanks for joining me on the program.
It's a pleasure.
So today is International Anti-Corruption Day, as I mentioned, of course, and since yesterday there's been different conferences. There was a conference held by the United States Embassy in Abuja, a round table, and so many issues were discussed. And today, of course, various messages coming from world-renowned leaders with regards to this issue as well. But coming back home, what do you think of the president's anti-corruption drive so far?
Well, thank you very much for having me again. Talking about the president's drive for anti-corruption, if you recall, this was actually one of the grounds on which people actually voted for this administration to come in, given the background that the president had. And yes, since they came in, they've tried to tackle some of the issues that we're facing in regards to corruption, especially in some particular sectors like the petroleum sector, which is actually government's cash cow in a matter of speaking. They've tried to address some of the challenges that we're facing there in order to sort of shore up government's revenues, as well as some other sectors within the public space that they have tried to work with in order to ensure that there's efficiency in their operations.
But then how much of an impact has this had on investors' perception of doing business here in Nigeria between when the president assumed office and now? Okay,
well, if you recall, shortly after the results of the election came in back in 2015, we had a massive rally, especially in the equities market, of about 9% in a particular day, which was termed the Buhari rally. So the international community, as well as domestic community, were actually watching Nigerian space with a keen eye to see what was the moves that were going to be made to sort of boost the economy and all, and it was greeted with a lot of optimism. But given some of the issues that we've had, some of the delays, the actions and inactions that have taken place between 2015 and now, we've seen a lot of this optimism actually depreciate, and now there's just one major factor in the market that everyone is looking towards, which has to do with the foreign exchange challenges that we're facing, and this still remains the major problem that has continued to dampen investor confidence in our market.
But taking a look at the PricewaterhouseCoopers report, that as of 2014, corruption would cost per person $1,000, and by 2030, about $2,000 per person. Now we have naira at 350, at 305 naira 50 kobo at the official window, that's the interbank foreign exchange. But at the other segments of the markets, there's so many of them. You have the bureau de change, you have the street market level, and the rest of it, which of course the central bank is trying very hard to contain. But now that we have almost a runaway of the naira, how much of an impact is this going to be, going to have on Nigerians?
Well, I mean, if from projections that are being made, it's quite clear that it's going to have a massive impact. Corruption in itself is going to have a massive impact on funds flow within the economy in the future if some of these challenges aren't curbed now in order to mitigate the damning impact that it could potentially have. We know there are a lot of issues about leakages, especially in terms of public administration, and this was one of the major issues that brought about the implementation of the TSA. And well, even though now there are some of these public offices might have found it more difficult to actually get funds to carry out some of their operations, we have to admit the fact that the implementation of TSA has actually blocked some of these leakages, and that is also connected with the drive against corruption, the implementation of TSA. So this has also blocked leakages. So there's also that need for them to implement more policies that can block leakages in the system, because this is one major issue that we were facing.
Now, these issues that you're talking about are not new, and you talked about the public sector, but then the private sector has actually also been pointed as being complicit as well in driving corruption, because they say when corruption becomes a cost of business as usual, businesses pass the burden onto consumers, and unpredictable corruption deters investment and innovation. Do you agree?
Yes. Well, yes. That is quite true. I mean, the corruption that we're talking about, even though I've sort of been focusing on public space, it's really everywhere in the private sector. And this I mean, the reason why we have so much corruption around is because when there's a whole lot of when you try to put some control and constraints as regards operations of some certain things, people always try to come out with ways to circumvent the rules that are already set. So in a situation like case in point, let's talk about the FX market, for instance, where there have been a lot of administrative measures to sort of try to keep the value of the domestic currency against the dollar at a certain range. So there are people who go to the official market to get these funds, and then they look for some way to transfer these funds to the unofficial market where they can actually earn a higher rate. If, for instance, we had a situation where where these controls didn't actually exist, and we allowed the market to determine forces of demand and supply to determine the movement of domestic currency, these issues of corruption that we're having in that space would have actually been addressed. So But
some will tend to disagree with you on that, because asking the markets to determine what the price level would be, either for supply or demand, as the case may be, is another way of allowing speculators to just run the market.
Well, in terms of looking at the FX market, speculation is something that has always been there. I mean, even in the international markets, we have speculators who are also, but there are also those who actually have genuine needs that they need to meet. I mean, now that we're having all these constraints, we've seen the impact that it has had on the economy. We had our GDP actually contract in 3 consecutive quarters, and it's broadly tied back to the FX issues that we're currently having.
So we talked about the public sector, we've talked about the private sector. Now, most individuals in the private sector always complain that the reason why we have such an endemic corruption is because officers in the public sector always require some form of compensation to get anything done, which is the reason why I asked you that question.
Thank you.
That when corruption becomes the cost of business as usual, because when you, for instance, you have to get a certain document, moved across through ministries or a department or an agency, you have to give a certain compensation to have that done. Do you think if we had a proper structure with proper ways of doing business, if, for instance, you need to submit a document to a particular agency, you can do it via the internet, so you do an e-submission rather than a face-to-face submission, cutting down your interface with humans? Do you think that will also go a long way?
You made a very good point. The ease of doing business in the country is one one key issue that needs to be addressed. So for instance, you want to register a business, you have to go through multiple processes that might almost seem repetitive and takes a longer period of time. And because you are in a hurry to sort of start and get on with your business, someone comes from someplace within the public sector and tells you, okay, if you pay me this certain amount, I can help you cut down I can help you scale through some of these processes and fast track the registration you're trying to make. So there's that need to actually improve on the ease of doing business. For instance, implementing the use of technologically advanced processes, like you mentioned, as opposed to going to an office to manually fill a form, submit it to someone, have an interview.
Eromosela, you will agree with me that that's already in place. So what is the issue? We have technology being used across most of the ministries, departments, and the agencies, but we still have the issue of having downtime and having impediments to the ease of doing business.
I think implementation really is the problem. We have to continue to strive to implement that. We have policies in place. Let's actually implement them. Let's try to discourage these nefarious activities that are being carried out. If you remember, a couple of months ago, the president launched a campaign about change begins with you. This also points to the fact that we also have to look inwards and actually try to decide that, okay, we want to do things the right way. That's the way we're going to move this country forward.
But in talking to investors, you, as an investment analyst with Africa Investor West Africa, you definitely interface on a regular basis with, investors who want to come in. What do you tell them? How do you make them realize that, look, this is a situation as it is, yes, but we're very certain that bringing in your investment at this time is the right thing to do?
Yeah, and from most of the discussions that we've had, the major issue still remains that FX market. That's what they're all looking at, the illiquidity in that space. They're trying to avoid a situation where they bring in their funds and then when they want to leave, they have challenges with actually recouping their funds. So despite all the moves to try to assure them that coming into Nigeria still remains an economically viable investment space. I mean, we have a population of about 160 million, so we have the population to actually help your business grow. But the major challenge still remains this FX issue, and this is what they're all looking at, and this has been the major thing that has dampened sentiments with regards to the Nigerian economy.
Eromosela Aziba, thank you so much for coming on the program
Thank you
this morning,
much,
of course, sharing your perspectives with us on the business and cost of corruption. Well, Business Morning returns in just a moment. Stay with us.